Hi, I'm Chuck Gifford, and I'll be reading you selections from this week's, March the 19th, Nantucket Inquirer Mirror. Our first story today comes from the top of the front page and is headlined, State Sides with Surfside Crossing 40B Development. HAC rejects groundwater safety concerns by Dean Geddes. March 13th. The State Housing Appeals Committee has issued a proposed decision in favor of the 156-unit Surfside Crossing development off South Shore Road, rejecting arguments of the Zoning Board of Appeals used to deny the 40B project last spring. In the March 11th proposed decision, the committee wrote that the ZBA failed to demonstrate that water quality, public safety, and other local concerns about the project outweighed the island's need for affordable housing. Quote, the denial of a permit to this well-designed development was not based on substantial local needs that outweigh the regional need for affordable housing, end quote, the proposed decision states. Noah Bombard, Director of Communications for the Executive Office for Housing and Livable Communities, emphasized that this is only a proposed decision, which gives all parties an opportunity to respond before a final decision is reached. Opponents have until March the 25th to file written objections to the proposed decision before the committee issues a final ruling. Nantucket Tipping Point, a citizens group that has opposed the project for years, said last Wednesday that it is, quote, weighing, quote, all available legal options, end quote. Developer Jamie Feely declined to comment, saying that he would wait until the decision is finalized. The ruling addressed and dismissed objections raised by the ZBA, the Nantucket Land and Water Council, and Nantucket Tipping Point, including concerns about groundwater contamination, stormwater runoff, fire safety, historic design, and pedestrian access. The proposed HAC decision by Presiding Officer Werner Lowe comes as no surprise, Nantucket Tipping Point wrote in a statement. The group noted that a previous ruling in favor of Surfside Crossing, issued by the same presiding officer, was later overturned by Superior Court, which ordered it back to the ZBA. The committee wrote in its proposed ruling that opponents failed to prove that the project's stormwater management system poses a meaningful risk to the town's public water supply, despite extensive testimony about the potential of PFAS contamination risks. The ruling did acknowledge that the project may fall short of a local requirement that 95% of annual precipitation be recharged, but it said opponents never showed how that shortfall would actually harm public health enough to outweigh the island's need for housing. The committee also rejected concerns about fire department access and water supply, saying that each building will have full sprinkler systems and that there is no code that requires aerial ladder access. While the ruling pointed to the strides Nantucket has made in addressing affordable housing since the 40B development was first proposed, including a certified housing production plan, it said that the case must be evaluated on the date of that the application was filed, April of 2018, when Nantucket had far less affordable housing. The proposed Surfside Crossing development would include 156 condominium units in 18 buildings on just under 13 acres off South Shore Road, and under the state's Chapter 40B affordable housing law, at least 25% of the units would be earmarked for affordable housing. Feely and his partner in the development, Josh Posner, have long said that they also plan to offer the remaining condominiums at a price point obtainable to year-round residents who earn too much income to qualify under affordable housing guidelines, but not enough to purchase a home on the current open market. The average Nantucket home price last year was around $4 million, with the median price, the exact middle of the market, topping $3.3 million. The Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously denied the project in April of 2025, citing concerns about groundwater protection, stormwater runoff, and public safety. The development has been tied up in legal battles for years. The ZBA initially approved a significantly scaled-back project from what Surfside Crossing had proposed, and the decision was appealed by both the developer and the opponents. The Housing Appeals Committee previously ruled in favor of Surfside Crossing in 2022, but Superior Court Judge Mark C. Galita later vacated that decision, calling it, quote, arbitrary, unreasonable, and inconsistent, end quote, citing in part a change from the mix of single-family homes and condo units presented to the ZBA to all condos considered by the HAC, and sent the case back to the Zoning Board for another round of hearings. After a 6-month review process, the ZBA denied the project last spring, prompting the developers to return to the HAC with a new appeal. Our next story from the front page is headlined, Island Men Facing Drug Trafficking Charges Work Together, DA Says, by Kay Quigley, March 17th. William Sarney and Edward Gillespie, two Nantucket men arrested on drug trafficking charges at separate times earlier this year, were working together to transport cocaine to the island from Cape Cod, prosecutors alleged in Barnstable District Court Tuesday morning. Sarney, 62, was arrested last Thursday after the Nantucket Police Department, Barnstable Police, and the Cape and Islands State Police Detective Unit executed a search warrant at his 3 Todd Circle home at approximately 11:22 a.m., according to police logs. Police reports were not immediately available, and Nantucket and Barnstable Police have not responded to requests for comment on what, if anything, was seized from Sarney's home during the search. Sarney was ordered held without bail after his arrest and arraigned in Barnstable District Court Friday on charges of conspiracy to violate drug law for a felony, trafficking 200 grams or more of cocaine, and distribution of a Class B drug, cocaine. During a dangerousness hearing Tuesday morning, the Barnstable judge set bail at $50,000, ordered him to wear a GPS monitoring device, comply with a 10 p.m. curfew, and have no contact with Gillespie or Andre Sylvia, 56, of Wareham, who was arrested in Wareham last Thursday for his alleged connection to the drug crimes. Sarney had not posted bail as of Wednesday afternoon. He was ordered to return to Barnstable District Court April 15th for a probable cause hearing. The arrests of Sarney, Sylvia, and Gillespie were the result of a months-long investigation that included police and detectives from several towns, including Nantucket, and other off-island agencies, according to the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office. The investigation began during November of 2025, when members of the State Police Detective Unit assigned to the District Attorney's Office investigated a fatal overdose in Barnstable County, according to the release. The State Office of the Chief Medical Examiner ruled the cause of death was diabetic ketoacidosis complicated by cocaine intoxication. Through investigative efforts by Barnstable Police, Sylvia was identified as the main supplier of the cocaine and was determined to be working with Sarney, according to the release. On January 8th, the Barnstable Police Detective Unit arrested Gillespie, 62, in connection with cocaine trafficking. Gillespie was identified as a narcotics supplier, trafficking cocaine from Hyannis to the island. At the time of his arrest, he was attempting to transport 1 kilogram of cocaine that had come from Sylvia and Sarney, according to prosecutors. The discovery of the drugs in Gillespie's possession stemmed from an attempted car theft January 6th, according to the January Barnstable Police report. The police obtained warrants from Barnstable District Court January 7th to install a camera directed at the vehicle and to install a GPS tracking device on the car, the report states. On the morning of January 8th, police saw Gillespie return to his car, walking directly to the trunk and looking through the trunk. The report states that Gillespie then shut the trunk and went to the driver's seat. Approximately 30 seconds later, Gillespie was observed returning to the trunk of the car, searching the spare tire well, closing the trunk, and making a phone call. He then searched the tire well a third time. The police observing Gillespie via the camera then arrived on scene. Gillespie told the police his car had been broken into. Officers told Gillespie he was being put under arrest for trafficking more than 200 grams of cocaine, to which Gillespie denied knowing about any drugs in the car and insisting that he did not put them there, according to the report. Barnstable police later obtained a search warrant for phone records, which revealed that the phone calls Gillespie made at the scene were to Sarney, prosecutors said on Tuesday. Phone records also showed pictures of the car that was broken into that Gillespie had sent to Sarney. Sarney's lawyer claimed in court Tuesday that Barnstable police used an informant to find the drugs in Gillespie's vehicle. Officers also obtained surveillance video from the Black Cat restaurant in Hyannis that showed a white Jeep Wrangler arrive at Gillespie's car on January 5th, 3 days before he was arrested. The driver of the car was identified as Sylvia. After further investigation, officers determined that Sylvia picked up Sarney at the Highline Terminal in Hyannis and then drove to Gillespie's vehicle to place a kilogram of cocaine allegedly purchased by Sarney from Sylvia into Gillespie's vehicle, where it was later discovered and reported to police, according to the DA's office. Following Gillespie's arrest in January, the Barnstable and Nantucket Police Detective Units, U.S. Coast Guard, and Cape Cod DEA Office executed a search warrant on his Windy Way residence. The search yielded additional quantities of cocaine, amphetamines, evidence of narcotics trafficking, and approximately $10,000 in cash, according to a press release. Gillespie was charged with trafficking over 200 grams of cocaine and arraigned in Barnstable District Court January 9th. He is next scheduled to appear in court March 25th for a probable cause hearing. Sylvia is charged with trafficking 200 grams or more of cocaine and conspiracy to violate drug law for a felony. He will be arraigned in Barnstable District Court and is also being charged in Wareham District Court for trafficking 200 grams or more of cocaine and other drug-related charges. Our next story, the last on the front page, is headlined, Free Spirit World Traveler, Nantucket Ice Champion, Bambi Malesko gone at 79. Priscilla Bambi, Marshall Gifford Malesko, lived a life defined by creativity, adventure, and a deep love for family. A talented artist and a leader in the communities she cherished, Bambi left an indelible mark on everyone who knew her. She died Thursday, March 12, 2026, at age 79. Bambi was born in Providence, Rhode Island, to Bud and Wink Gifford. She grew up in a loving family and adored her 3 older brothers, Dunn, Jock, and Chad, who helped shape the adventurous and spirited personality she carried throughout her life. From an early age, Bambi's life was filled with adventure and travel. Her family explored much of the world together, skiing the Alps, visiting the Greek Isles, and discovering extraordinary places. In her younger years, her striking beauty led to a brief modeling career, and as an accomplished skier, she was featured in skiing films by the legendary filmmaker John Jay. One of the most extraordinary stories from Bambi's childhood occurred in 1956 when she and her family were returning from a trip to Italy aboard the Italian ocean liner Andrea Doria. On the night of July 25th, the ship collided with the MS Stockholm and sank off the coast of Nantucket. Bambi, along with her mother and brothers, escaped in one lifeboat, while her father followed later in another. Summers on Nantucket were the highlight of Bambi's childhood and remained a defining part of her life. She treasured island days spent with family, especially spending time at the Nantucket Yacht Club, riding her horse Tucket, and driving around the island in the family's Jeep, affectionately known as the Pink Heap. From a young age, Bambi's artistic gifts were unmistakable. She possessed a rare and vivid imagination and the ability to see beauty and possibility where others might not. She attended the Wheeler School before continuing on to the Madeira School. She later received a degree in fine arts from the Rhode Island School of Designs in 1969. After college, Bambi worked for Senator Edward Kennedy and proudly served as one of the marshals at the Civil Rights March in Washington, D.C. She later pursued a master's in fine arts at the University of Pennsylvania, continuing her lifelong dedication to creativity and artistic expression. A chance meeting on Nantucket would ultimately change the course of her life when she met Tom Malesko. The two married and built a life together, grounded in family, laughter, and shared adventure. Together they raised 3 children, Wink, AJ, and Jason, splitting their time between New Canaan, Connecticut, and Nantucket. Bambi approached everything she did with determination and enthusiasm. Competitive by nature and blessed with a natural talent, she seemed to excel at anything she set her mind to, including always catching the biggest and most fish. On Nantucket, she combined her creativity and entrepreneurial spirit by owning and operating the clothing store, Together, that began on Strait Wharf and later moved to Main Street. One of Bambi's proudest accomplishments was her leadership with Nantucket Ice. Through her relentless determination, she successfully spearheaded the effort to build the island's ice rink, an achievement that has benefited Nantucket families since it opened in 2002. Her commitment to preserving the island she loved was equally strong. Bambi served as a board member of the Nantucket Conservation Foundation, dedicating her time and energy to protecting the natural beauty of Nantucket for future generations. She also made history as the first female Commodore of the Nantucket Yacht Club, a role that reflected both her leadership and her lifelong connection to her beloved community. Above all else, Bambi's greatest pride and joy was her family. She was a loving and devoted mother and grandmother whose loyalty and generosity knew no bounds. She loved deeply and protected fiercely, always placing the people that she cared about in the center of her life. She was also wonderfully funny and full of life, bringing energy and laughter wherever she went. In her later years, Bambi continued to nurture her creative spirit through painting, pottery, and other artistic pursuits. She loved returning to her favorite blueberry and beach plum picking spots, a tradition that began in childhood with her parents. She also looked forward to scallop season every year and was known for her incredible scallop Christmas lights that she crafted and gifted to family and friends. She and Tom spent time traveling together and enjoying life between Nantucket and Florida, and embarking on countless adventures like camping out in the Everglades. Bambi is survived by her beloved husband Tom Malesko, their children, Wink van Oogthorpe, and her husband Andrew van Oogthorpe, A.J. Griswold and her husband Jason Griswold, and Jason Malesko and his wife Jenny Malesko, and her 13 grandchildren, Reed, Chase, Tess, John, and Tuck van Oogthorpe, Finley, Jamie, Sam, and Oliver Griswold, and Wes, Cooper, Marlin, and Mabel Malesko. She is also survived by her brothers Jock Gifford and Chad Gifford, their spouses, and many nieces and nephews and their families. Bambi will be remembered for her remarkable creativity, her fierce loyalty, her humor, and the enormous love she gave to her family and friends. Her legacy lives on in the many lives she touched and institutions that she helped build, and in the family that she cherished so deeply. A funeral service will be held at 11 a.m. Friday, March 27th at St. Paul's Church on Fair Street. There will be a celebration of life this summer on Nantucket. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made in Bambi's honor to the Nantucket Conservation Foundation. Our next story is headlined, New Candidates Pull Papers for Select Board School Committee by Sarah Roberts, March 18th. Harry Clay Evans V briefly joined Amy Eldridge, Clifford Williams, and Jill Veith in pulling papers for the election to the Select Board earlier this week, but has decided not to return them. Heidi Fee also pulled papers this week for a run to school committee. It appears that given my grad school workload right now, it isn't the best time to commit to a run for office, Evans, who is pursuing a master's degree in public administration at UMass Boston, said in a message to the Inquirer Mirror Thursday morning. On reflection right now, it's not the right time, as my grad school program is really intense, and when I do eventually operationalize, I want to be able to do so effectively to benefit fellow islanders. The Select Board will have 2 new members this May after incumbent Tom Dixon told the Inquirer Mirror on Wednesday he will not seek re-election once his first term on the board comes to a close. Incumbent Malcolm McNabb also announced earlier this year he will not run again. Perennial candidate Clifford Williams, a Federal Aviation Administration employee at Nantucket Memorial Airport and a former Finance Committee member, who has run for Select Board 15 times, pulled papers last week. Current FinCom Chair Jill Veith joined Williams and Amy Eldridge, longtime Sconset resident and manager of Holgate's Island Laundry, in the Select Board race by pulling papers last Thursday. Eldridge has been attending Select Board meetings consistently for about a year now, she said. She was inspired to start attending more town government meetings after feeling a little confused about certain decisions that had been made in the previous year. I'd been at a couple of town meetings where there were some things that didn't make sense to me, so I thought, well, maybe that attending these meetings will help fill in the gaps as to why I don't understand why we did A and got to C, Eldridge said this month. I think my love and my deep connection to this community has driven me to want to leave this place better than I found it, she continued. Evans could not be immediately reached for comment. Longtime school committee member and former chair Dr. Tim Lepre confirmed to the Inquirer Mirror that he will run for another term and pulled papers last month. Incumbent Chantal Blois Murphy, Director of Culture and Tourism for the town, and political newcomer Jenny Cook, clerk of the Nantucket Stage Company, also pulled papers for the committee. Joining the school committee race last week was Heidi Fee, Executive Director of Small Friends on Nantucket. Sarah Alger has pulled papers for another term as annual town meeting moderator. Another long-time incumbent, Neil Patterson, has taken out nomination papers and said he will run for another term on the Land Bank Commission. Ray Pohl, an island architect and current vice chair of the Historic District Commission, pulled nomination papers last Wednesday. Fellow HDC incumbent Van Oliver had not pulled papers as of Tuesday. Planning Board incumbent Hillary Rayport, who has served on the board for the past year after taking over the remaining time on former member John Trudell's term following his resignation, pulled papers and will run for re-election, she said. Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board incumbent Peter Brace has already pulled nomination papers. Fellow incumbent Dave Franzuto, a former Nantucket harbor master and Coast Guardsman, had not pulled papers as of Tuesday. Kevin Korn, a member of the Nantucket Shellfish Association, pulled papers for SHAB this week. Incumbents Curtis Barnes and Nelson Eldridge have pulled papers for Nantucket Water Commission along with Michael Egan, and incumbent Beth Ann Meehan has pulled papers for her seat on the Housing Authority. Nomination papers for the May 19th election are now available in the town clerk's office in the Broad Street Town Building. The deadline to file nomination papers is March 31st. They must contain the signature of at least 50 registered Nantucket voters. The deadline to withdraw nomination papers in time to be removed from the ballot is April 16th. Friday, April 24th is the voter registration deadline for the May 19th election. Races on this year's ballot, should they be contested, are for moderator, 1-year term, 1 seat, Sarah Alger, incumbent. Select Board, 3-year term, 2 seats, Tom Dixon and Malcolm McNabb, incumbents. School Committee, 3-year term, 2 seats, Tim Lepre, Chantal Blois Murphy, incumbents. Historic District Commission, 3-year term, 2 seats, Ray Pohl, Val Oliver, incumbents. Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 5-year term, 1 seat, Neil Patterson, incumbent. Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, 3-year term, 2 seats, David Franzuto and Peter Brace, incumbents. Planning Board, 5-year term, 1 seat, Hillary Hedges Rayport, incumbent. Nantucket Housing Authority, 5-year term, 1 seat, Beth Ann Meehan, incumbent. Nantucket Water Commissioners, 3-year term, 2 seats, Nelson Eldridge, Curtis Barnes, incumbents. Finally today, we have the District Court report headlined Light Week in Nantucket District Court by Sarah Roberts, March 18th. Assault and motor vehicle charges topped a relatively quiet week in Nantucket District Court. Andrew Ballard, 44, of 40 Myacomet Avenue, had 3 January 9, 2024 charges of assault and battery on a family or household member dismissed after completing 18 months of pre-trial probation. Manuel Mancia, 58, of 73 Old South Road, was arraigned on March 10th charges of operating a motor vehicle with a license suspended for operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol and failure to wear a seatbelt. Not guilty and not responsible pleas were entered on his behalf, and he was ordered to return to court April 13th for a pretrial hearing. Hierro Reyes Rosario, 35, of New Jersey, had a June 22, 2015 charges of operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol, negligent operation of a motor vehicle, and a marked lanes violation dismissed due to a lack of prosecution. Eugene Detmer, 70, of 94 Westchester Street, will have a February 12th charge of operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol, dismissed after being continued without a finding for 1 year. A charge of negligent operation of a motor vehicle stemming from the same incident was dismissed at the request of prosecutors. He was found not responsible for a marked lanes violation, failure to stop or yield, and failure to wear a seatbelt. Frank Santana de Souza, 36, of Woburn, had July 18, 2024 charges of unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle, using an electronic device while operating a motor vehicle, and a miscellaneous motor vehicle equipment violation, dismissed at the request of prosecutors. Marcos Martinez Contreras, 40, of 4B Hatviga Way, was arraigned on March 14th charge of assault and battery. A not guilty plea was entered on his behalf, and he was ordered to return to court April 21st for a pretrial hearing. That's all I have time for. This is your reader, Chuck Gifford, saying goodbye, and thanks for listening.